Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My presentation is on Zaynab bint Jahsh radiallahu anha, one of the most important women in the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life. Who is Zaynab bint Jahsh? Zaynab radiallahu anha was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's first cousin and later one of his wives. She was a very significant person in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life. She was born into a rich and prominent family in Mecca that were all Sahaba and was known for many things, including her beauty, her generosity, and her truthfulness. Before she got married to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she was in a marriage with Zayd ibn Haritha radiallahu anhu, who was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's adopted son. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted her to marry him. She was apprehensive at first, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the ayah in Surah Al-Ahzab. No believing man or woman had a choice when Allah decrees a matter. Because of her loyalty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she agreed. The marriage between Zaynab and Zayd radiallahu anhum wasn't successful, as they eventually divorced, but because she obeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the beginning, she was rewarded with marrying the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Her marriage to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was also mentioned in the Quran, and some people refer to the Quran as a witness to their marriage. Zaynab radiallahu anha was called Barra at the time, meaning pious, but then the Prophet ordered people to call her Zaynab, since Allah was the only one who knows piety in people. Zaynab radiallahu anha was one of the most special wives to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, along with Aisha radiallahu anha. The two had great respect for each other, and it was started because of Zaynab's honesty. There were nasty rumors going around about Aisha radiallahu anha at the time. People were slandering her name, and this word eventually made it to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One day, he went to Zaynab radiallahu anha and asked her about her thoughts on Aisha radiallahu anha. Zaynab radiallahu anha replies, saying she wouldn't say anything about something she didn't see with her eyes or hear with her ears. She had nothing but great things to say about Aisha radiallahu anha, admiring her integrity and goodness. Aisha praises Zaynab radiallahu anha after this incident and finds a new respect for her since she stood up for her when nobody else would. Another one of Zaynab's admirable qualities was her charitability. One day, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told his wives whoever had the longest hands would be the first to follow him, meaning death. By longest hands, he was referring to someone being the most charitable. His wives took what he said literally and began measuring each other's hands. Zaynab radiallahu anha did not have the longest hands. His other wife, Sauda radiallahu anha, did. But Zaynab happened to be a very hard worker, and with her business gave all the proceeds she made to charities. She became the first one to pass away out of his wives, and that was when they realized the Prophet ﷺ meant the most charitable when he said long hands. Zaynab radiallahu anha passed away in 20 Hijri. She was a woman of modesty when she was alive, so during her burial, they made sure she was covered completely, holding a sheet over the spot she was being buried in. They buried her in Al-Baqiyah, which is located in Medina, and women being buried there are always covered because of Zaynab radiallahu anha. She was a great woman during her time and impacted many people through her actions. Thank you for listening to my presentation. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.